We're so excited about the first of our workshops around financial resilience. My name is Elaine Bowes, and I am the head of marketing and communications at the Pentecostal Credit Union, and I'm joined by my friend
David Frederick. Hi, I'm also a board member from the Pentecostal Credit Union, and in my day job I am managing director of Marcus Bishop Associates, where I look after clients from cradle to grave.
Excellent, thank you, David. So I'm just going to be kind of facilitating this evening, but I want to start off with a scripture, and I want to use this scripture because I think really this underpins all our work around financial resilience, and really tells us what it's all about. So can everyone see the screen? Everyone see the screen? Excellent. So this scripture is taken from Ecclesiastes 7, verse 12. And it says, "For the protection of wisdom is like the protection of money, and the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the life of him who has it." And of course, we're talking about being wise with money. So it's very apt, you can see, for this time. So we're delighted to invite you to this workshop, and we're going to talk about financial resilience. And I've got a few slides to show you around financial resilience. But before we go into the slides, I just want to talk about why we decided to do it and why it's so important at this time. And the reason is, of course, it's COVID-19, and lockdown in particular has cast a really keen focus on resilience in very general terms. You know, everyone's using the term resilience everywhere, all kinds of resilience. But financial resilience, which has always been important, but lockdown and the fear of the unknown and the very unpredictable nature of the times we find ourselves in has actually brought this focus, really focused our minds even more on financial resilience. And economically, we're being told many things. You know, I don't know if you remember when lockdown started, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, said, "We're about to enter, or we will be entering, the worst recession that we'd ever seen, certainly since the 1930s. And everyone got nervous about that. And then more recently, as the lockdown has been easing and the restaurants and things started opening up, he then started saying there started to be some evidence to show actually maybe the economy is not doing that badly, and there were seeds of growth, and people even said there might even be a kind of boom, a boom period. But we don't really know what's going to happen. And what is clear is that it is unpredictable. And certainly we won't know until the government sustainability programs, the financial sustainability programs are done and complete. And certainly when the furlough scheme is finished in October, I think it is, we really won't know, probably not until next year, also what's really going to happen. So it is so important then, you can see the importance of us really saying we really need to understand, we don't know it's unpredictable, we don't know what's going to happen, we need to knuckle down. So that's why we're here. We're here to help in some way to prepare ourselves for the future. And much of this is actually a reminder of previous things that we've known about good financial stewardship. So here is an official kind of definition of financial resilience. So it's the ability to withstand and recover from temporary financial hardship and disruptions, rather than a reactionary response to an acute need. Resilience is a long-term, ongoing and sustainable process that can be nurtured and planned for. The goal of a financial resilience-led strategy is to strengthen us for the long term. So it's not a short-term thing, it's something that we should be doing all the time. It's something that should be in our DNA. And the actual indicators that tell us that, or tell us the things that we should be doing to actually be financially resilient are these Actually, these 4 are the kind of conventional wisdom. This is not PCU stuff, but this is what people who know about money have said about financial resilience. And the first is having enough savings to fund expenses in an emergency. Now, conventionally, we've always said people should have 3 to 6 months of savings just in case there's an emergency. But you have to remember, we've just had lockdown that's been nearly a year. We've been in lockdown for nearly a year. And those of us that haven't been able to work in that time because of lockdown would have needed much more than 3 to 6 months. So we're going to have to review that really in relation to that. The second is a high savings rate in relation to our income. Now, a high savings rate in relation to our income is generally saving around 50% of our income. That's considered to be a high savings rate in relation to our income. I personally don't know many people who can afford to save 50% of their income. And certainly, actually, at PCU, we would say to our members and to people, actually, rather than it being saving that much money, save as much as you can, but the important thing is save regularly. So set up a standing order, set up a direct debit, standing order, whatever it is, to save regularly and do that as much as you can. And the ability to borrow and pay down debt is absolutely important in all situations. You don't want to be borrowing if you don't need to, but if something happens and you need to be able to borrow, you want to have the freedom and the confidence to be able to borrow at low interest rates and be able, of course, to pay that down. And we're going to be talking about that at the next in the next event next week. And of course, the ability to manage your spending. And David's going to be talking about that as well in a couple of weeks. But we've added to that something that we think is absolutely critical, which is wisdom in managing your financial affairs, actually being wise about money. Because actually, until we've really got that really patted down, and you'll see what we're talking about a bit later, actually, none of the other things will really happen. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and
Elaine, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm handing over to you, David. Sorry about that, don't know what happened. Handing over to you, David and Steve, to introduce the poll.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Elaine, thanks for your introductions to setting the theme and the scenes for financial resilience and our direction of travel. And before I go into the poll, I just want to pose my thoughts with you for this evening and so as well too. Many people may be struggling with finances, and that may be you as well too. However, here is my proposition, not for tonight, but long term. And I've often told people this. My proposition is this: money worries is not the problem. Period. Full stop. So therefore, what should we be worrying about? And to help you with that, we've got a poll that poses 3 questions, and it asks you, what should you be worrying about? There are 3 questions in the poll, and you can take your vote now. Is the poll up, Stephen? Yeah. You can vote now for what? Vote now for one of these: how your partner spends money, the rising cost of living, or my attitude to money. Keep going, keep going. This is not as close as last night's game at all, by a long way. Looks as though the results coming home tonight. Still voting, still voting. Wonderful. How your partner spends your money. I know that very well. Yes, yes, yes. Perhaps that's why I'm single. The rising cost of living. Oh dear. Right, so I think we've had, no, there's some more votes required. We're counting down. Have they finished, Stephen? Is that the results?
So we've got about 87% of those who are online that have voted at the moment.
Do you want to change that card from you and vote something else? Right. In that case, then I'll go through the poll from the 87%. And in third place tonight, we have how your partner spends your money, 6%. I agree, it's not a great problem, okay? Because if you're in a relationship, these things happen. What's mine is yours, and what's yours is still yours. The rising cost of living comes close second, 20%. But ahead by a long way, yes, it's my attitude to money. 73% of you believe it's your attitude to money that's the real problem. And I concur with that. Money worries is not the problem, never has been. And I think people get confused about money worries. The problem about money stems right from the beginning. Our attitude towards money, our money relationship, our money education, and our money miseducation. Hence, that's why tonight I'm going to hand you over to Elaine to do a short presentation on how to be smart about your money and Moneywise. Elaine, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. And I'm just going to share my screen again. Oh dear, hang on, that's it. Right. So, okay. Right, can everyone see that? Yeah. Right, brilliant. This one. Right. So, this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how to be smart with money. And I'm going to start off again with a scripture. And I will tell you how relevant this scripture is to what we're going to be talking about. This comes from 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 5 to 7. And Peter says here, add to your faith goodness, and to goodness knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and to self-control perseverance, and to perseverance godliness, and to godliness mutual affection, and to mutual affection love. And we came across this scripture actually as we were developing our workshops, our what we call Moneywise workshops. We were looking for a framework, trying to develop a framework that actually showed how important it is to actually approach your attitude to money in a certain way. An actual framework which was more than that, looked at your approach to money, but then other things that would be a kind of holistic approach to money. And what we did is we happened upon something called the Emotional Intelligence Competence Framework. Those of you who work in HR, an OD, or maybe work who are therapists or do counselling would know about this construct. It's it really is a route to wisdom, to be shorthand about it, really. It is a framework that was developed actually a very long time ago. It was popularised in the 1990s by a chap, an academic called Daniel Goleman, but actually Daniel Goleman wasn't the person who developed it. Over many, many years, different academics have talked about emotional intelligence. And what it is it's certain types of behaviour that improve our relationship with ourselves and then improves our relationships with everyone else. And actually, as I said, is the route to wisdom. But you can actually apply emotional intelligence across the piece to lots of things. You can have emotional intelligence in relation to a person and an individual. And what we did was we applied emotional intelligence to money and to financial capability because it worked extremely well. And then we were looking for a scripture to underpin our kind of teaching after we'd done that framework. And we found this. And actually thousands and thousands of years ago, Peter spoke about how to live a godly life. And those of you will identify the emotional intelligence competence framework right here. What it does is all of those things, they are in themselves, they stand alone in themselves as individual behaviors, but they build upon each other. You can't get to the next stage. There are 5, we're using 5 today, ultimately, and I'll show them to you in a minute. But you can't get to the next stage until you get some competence in the first stage. And one of these things is, because it's about wisdom, it's a lifetime's effort. You can spend your whole life developing this and growing in wisdom, but you know, you'll never get to the end of it because you can never be so wise. So we thought it was excellent. And here it is, really. So we have 5 in really important competencies that we need to master around how we approach money and our attitude to money. And the first is self-awareness. The second is self-control. The third is motivation. The fourth is empathy. And the fifth one is about our relationships with other people. And each one, as I say, builds upon the other. And I just want to talk about each one in some detail now, really around self-awareness and emotionality and money. And you will know, I know you'll agree with me when I tell you that money is deeply emotional. Actually, there is nothing that creates more a disharmony in our lives, in our marriages, in our relationships than money does. I think they said it's the #1 cause for divorce is, you know, issues around money. And we really need to understand about what they call our money mindset and how really emotional states can impact how we spend money and what we do with our money. And they tell us actually that there are principally 4 kinds of money mindsets. There are more than that, but actually all of us will be somewhere in this category of 4. And I'll explain a bit about them after I tell you, explain some things around them after I explain them to you. The first money mindset is the anxious or the frugal money mindset. And that is where we may be really very cautious about spending, maybe overcautious about spending, maybe hoarding, checking everything out and looking for bargains and things, even if we don't particularly need to find them. It's a kind of scarcity mentality, and it might be learned from others or personal experiences of scarcity in the past. That's one. The second one they tell us is money avoidance. And this is where we kind of seek to dodge our commitments to money. It's typically avoiding making financial decisions, avoiding confronting financial problems. So, you know, when the bills come, we know that there's a bill, we know there's a red letter, so we don't open the bills. We don't pay the bills on time. We avoid looking at bills. And we therefore incur high overdrafts and fees and credit and payment fees. The next one is an abundance mindset. And this is the person who likes to spend money, person who likes to take risks, will shop a lot, constantly spending, buy maybe what they don't need, probably do little budgeting or not budgeting at all. And I said, always shopping. And the fourth money mindset is what they call the worship mindset. And this is what it says on the tin. Basically, where money is more important than it needs to be, where it becomes corrupted, where the love of money actually takes over how we're doing things. So we're going to talk a bit more about that later. But I just want to move on and around emotionality and money, and I want to show you this slide. And you might have seen this when we were advertising it. We put this slide out, which was, how did my divorce affect my spending? And I'm going to tell you a little story about how my divorce affected my spending. Now, you know, before I was divorced and before it all happened, I was, I wasn't brilliant with money, but I wasn't that bad, actually. You know, things were ticking over quite fine, actually. And after my divorce, really, one of the things I found myself doing is I would go shopping. I would go and spend a lot of money, actually, shopping. And when I'd gone and spent that money shopping, it would make me feel better. And I'd feel better for maybe a week or two. And then when that was wearing off, I'd go shopping again. And then when that was wearing off, I would go shopping again. It was making me feel comfortable temporarily. And then there's a term for this. I remember actually I was working at this place and my boss, because I used to go shopping all the time, and he said to me, "Oh, retail therapy again, Elaine," he said to me. And I thought, what was that? Retail therapy? Retail therapy, there's a term for it. But let me tell you the impact of that retail therapy on my money's mindset, and of course on my finances at the time. It entirely corrupted my money mindset because I was out of control in terms of shopping. And it actually put me into an avoidance mindset because, of course, I was shopping too much. I couldn't afford it. So the bills were coming in and I couldn't pay them. So I stopped looking at them. And I used this phrase if people said, "Oh, I'm not really very good with money. I'm not good with money." Not really. And my dad, who is amazing with money, would sit me down and he'd say to me, "Well, listen, you know, you have to do a budget." And he'd sit down with me and say, and make me do my income and expenditure, which actually showed that I had more going out than was coming in. And I was supposed to stick to this budget. Did it work? No, of course it didn't work because my head wasn't there. My head wasn't there at all. I wasn't in that frame of mind and I didn't understand what was going on with me. Now, some people might have said I might have needed some therapy. Maybe I did need some therapy. I don't know. But the fact is, had I understood that my money mindset was being corrupted by this emotional hijack that was happening to me, I might have then been able to put in place some kinds of things. I would have got an alert to know that when I feel like going shopping, actually, it's not really about shopping that I really wanted to do. It was something else. So that's my little story. We're going to talk a bit more about that later with all of you in terms of in conversation. But of course, also understanding about our relationship with money also means that we need to understand about money. We need to understand about the money markets. We need to understand when we are entering into contracts for lending or other financial products. What are we signing? How many of us actually read the small print? Some of you might say, well, all the small print's the same, isn't it? It's all the same. No, it isn't, actually. It isn't. It's very, very different with different people. The small print is not the same. When we talk about interest and you're told, well, this is going to be the interest, and you will be told about interest because lenders are obliged to make sure you know exactly what the interest is. But what does that really mean for what you're going to be repaying for the cost of having that loan? What does it really mean? Do we really understand that? And when we think we are achieving value for money, buy one, get two free or whatever, and we really think, oh, that sounds really good. Do we really need it? What really is value for money? And are we really achieving it? And I just want you to have a look at this picture. And I want you to please tell me in the chat, and Marcia, if you could just tell me, what is really striking about this little boy? What's really striking about this little boy? What strikes you about this photo? Have we got some stuff in the chat, Marcia?
Yes, you have.
Right. So, what's striking about this little boy?
His smile. He looks happy.
He is.
Oversized jacket. Basically, it's his smile. He looks dapper. looks smart. Someone said joy. He seems happy. So it's very much that he's smiling a lot. He looks happy, even though he's in an outfit that is too big for him.
Yeah, well, he's a very gorgeous little boy, isn't he? He's really lovely. He was 11 years old, and that was his first day at secondary school. And you're right. What is striking about that is that jacket, that blazer is 2 sizes too big for him. And what his mother did is, his mother, in buying his school uniform, decided that actually she needed to buy the jacket bigger than he needed it. And in those days, I suppose it's the same now, really. Children's clothes, when you buy a bigger size, you actually pay more for it. You pay more for it. So she felt, well, I will pay more for it because actually, in the long run, I'm going to be saving money by doing this. But of course, was she really saving money? No, she wasn't really saving money, because by the time he'd grown into that jacket was worn and old anyway, and she needed to buy a new jacket in any event. So when she thought she was saving money, she wasn't saving money at all. Was that an economy? No, it wasn't an economy. It was a false economy. It wasn't very real at all. And I'm going to go back now to the next stage of this, and I'll go quickly through this. Once you will see that you are not able to control anything unless you are completely aware of what you need to control, which is your relationship with money and how that is progressing. That's the really important thing. Once you have some idea of your relationship with money, then the self-control stuff, so the budgeting, the savings plan, the spending plan, the financial plan, the investment plan, all of those things you can really sit down and do and stick to, because your head's in the right place and you know what it is that you're dealing with. If you don't, you're actually not able to do that. But once you've done all of those things and you've got all your plans, and actually you're thinking you've got your money stuff laid out really well, and you're thinking you're really happy with what you're doing, and maybe one of your plans is wealth creation and you're making money because that's working out well for you. There is also something that we really need to think about, and this next one, which is this motivation, this higher purpose and integrity, is incredibly important to the framework, because this is the thing that checks or prevents us going over to the dark side, if you like, in terms of the love of money. This is where we need to remember that with all of these things, when we're looking at money and we are creating wealth and we are achieving our ambitions, which are all wonderful and amazing things to do, actually there is always, there are things in our lives that are more important than money. And the things in our lives that are more important than money is our health, our well-being, our children, our faith, our relationship with God, our relationship with other family members. These things are more important than money. And this is a real, stabilizer, if you like, to money becoming, or the love of money overtaking what it is that we're trying to do. And then once we're clear about that, then delivering that, this is when we actually now move. That motivation is the bridge over to actually how we treat other people and how we use our wealth and what God has given us to actually improve the lives of other people and of the environment that we live in. And so giving and sharing is a really important element of the Moneywise concept also. This is about sharing, giving, tithing, giving to others. And the Bible is replete, of course, with scriptures about giving. And I don't need to say what those are, but we have to remember that part of that, part of our money control is about giving. And if we can't give, if actually we are not able to physically give money, then we're able to give of our time, to be able to of our time to in volunteering to make a difference really in the world and to make a difference to the environment that we live in. I'm going to stop there in relation to the Moneywise concept, because we're going to actually move now to really start to have a conversation with you about money and about some of the things that that I've presented to you, and also some other things that we need to think about in terms of being wise about money. And we're calling this section "Let's Talk About It," really. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And David and I are going to facilitate a conversation, but we're going to ask you to join in this conversation. We're going to ask you to comment and to ask questions either in the chat, or if you would like to speak, to ask your questions by speaking or comment by speaking, please put that in the chat also, and Marcy will see that, and Steve will unmute you so you're able to speak. So we've got 4 topics that we're going to start with, and we're going to be debate each topic for about 3 minutes or so. Then we're going to open it up to you to comment. And as I said, you can ask questions or just comment as you wish. And David is going to kick off with asking me something. David.
Hi, Elaine. Yes, I am going to kick off. In fact, it reminds me of last night's kickoff, almost half an hour before kickoff last night. Right, my first question for you, Elaine, is talking about all these emotional money and money behaviours. How do you check emotional hijacking when making decisions about spending?
Right, well, actually, David, I can answer this really well, because, this is what I didn't do when it was all happening. And I've learned now that these are the kinds of things I should have done. I have to say to you that anytime I talk about things, I've been there. I don't think you can say to people about these things you haven't been there if you don't know. And I really do know about this. And I think the first thing is you have to recognize, first of all, that it's happening to you. What I didn't recognize when I was getting divorced was actually that I was out of control. I didn't know that I was out of control. So it wasn't possible for me to control it. And that is why cultivating an awareness of your relationship with money is so important. So you can know and receive those alerts when things are going off key. Now, actually, if you go on the internet, there are many programs online that can help you to assess what your money mindset is. And so that if it's going off key, I mean, the important thing about the money mindset is that I said that there were 4 main ones, but actually all of us, they're generally 4, but all of us have hybrids of each one. So you can have, you can have an abundance mindset, but also you could also be a little bit frugal too. So it's not that it's written in tablets of stone, but whatever is most preeminent, you will know. And the other thing that's important is, of course, it can be corrupted. It can change entirely depending on what's going on in your life. You can move from abundance to frugal, just like that, because something's going on. But as I said, you can go online and get these programs, but actually you can check it out for yourself. And the way you
can stop it for a minute, okay? You said you were out of control, okay? Yeah. So what checked your out of controlness? What brought you back on track from losing it completely?
Well, you know what, David, actually I went through, I didn't get checked. I went through years, and this is why I can tell you, don't do what I do this. It took me years to get back on track, actually, because I didn't know what was going on. It was years of it, because remember, I wasn't even looking. I mean, I knew something was going on because I was getting the bills. But because I was in this avoidance thing, I didn't want to look at it. And there was no one, as I said, my parents, my dad, he's just amazing. But my dad is budget. Sit down with me, look, I would say, tap my dad, I need some money. Dad, please, I need some money. And he would say, well, we'll have a look at your, you've got a budget, and stick to your budget. No, I mean, I'm not a stupid person. I know what budgeting is about, really. I understand that, but my head wasn't there. And I did not understand about this till years later. I didn't know what was going on with me until years later. By that time, I paid the price, let me tell you.
Right.
That's
So
what
in fact, you were saying, okay, although you began as someone who was in control of your finances, because of the situation, you moved to that state of avoidance, really, in that respect.
Yeah.
So although you had that check in place by your dad about budget, really, that was great information, great knowledge, but because your mindset wasn't there, you weren't processing it in that way, because you were still on your different track.
I absolutely was.
And that's important for people to understand, okay? Although we can tell someone, oh, you must do this, must do the other, okay? What's important from what Elaine is saying is that you need to understand where that person's mindset is at that time and that place as well too, because Elaine had all the great foundations, framework around her, because we know Elaine's dad, okay? You know, he's a maestro with a penny or two, a magician in some respects, but Elaine, unfortunately, she'd lost it because of her situations, and lots of us will go through that, but thankfully, as Elaine said, she went through years of that. She wasn't aware of it, but she came back on track.
Yeah.
So that's important to understand. Yeah, the knowledge, the advice is good, it's sound, but because the mind is in a different place, time, and location, it wasn't working.
No, no, and it's absolutely hopeless, because I had no awareness at all of my relationship with money. So because I hadn't got that, I couldn't go to the next bit, which is the discipline, the planning, and the budgeting, which is where he was trying to get me to. But it was just hopeless. Yeah. And had I had that understanding and knowledge of what was going on with me, as I said, I hope that alone would have checked my spending, but maybe it hadn't done. But I'll tell you what it would have done. It would have given, because this is all unconscious behavior. What it would have done is it would have given me an alert. I would have known, I'd have thought, actually, something's going on here that shouldn't have gone here. And I could have practiced some things. And one of the things I could practice was how I spend. So for instance, I like to spend online currently. I pick my phone up. I can say, I want this, that, and the other. And I go, yep, I can put this and this and this in the cart, in the basket. But what I would do now is I will leave them in the basket for 24 hours. Leave it. And then when I've left it in the basket, I'll come back the next day and think, do I really want that? Maybe, probably not. No, maybe not. And there's this thing, the 5 whys. You ask yourself why 5 times before you make that purchase. When delay it and say why do I need it? What do I do I really need those pair of shoes? I've got 100 pair of shoes. What do I need those shoes for? And I've got shoes that look just like that. What do I need those for? And those kinds of things check. And I actually do that. I do that now. Although those things in terms of what happened all those years ago, and that mindset's gone. But I always check. I frequently will fill up my basket when I'm doing things and leave it for 24 hours, and I'll come back and decide whether I'm going to take it or not. Those are really important things that I can do to check what's going on until I get into a habit of doing this, and then I get some control, really, because I was out of control.
Right. Elaine, that's great, because I've got some questions from the chat, okay?
Yeah.
And one of them says, oh my days, I can identify that. And we can with the basket approach and leaving it there for, yeah. But what I want to ask you about, okay, is when was that light bulb moment that helped you transition and changed your mindset? That's from Tanya. What was it that made you change from this abundance to being back on track to stability, growth, and to where you are today?
Yeah, well, do you know what? I wish I could say there was a light bulb moment, but honestly, I can't say there was a light bulb. It got too bad, Tanya. It just got too bad. It was too bad. I was getting in real trouble. I just had to. I tell you. I mean, I'm not going to tell you what happened. There's something did happen, but I'm not going to share it with you. Really,
okay.
That made me really say, this is too far, Elaine. Too far. look at your money, look at what you're doing and doing that. And, you know, and my parents were amazing, really, around all of this with me. But yeah, there came a point at which I really just had to stop. I was just spending, it was out of control. I was just spending too much money, really. And as I say, it wasn't a light bulb moment, really. It was a bit of a crisis moment, to be frank.
Okay. I want to leave it there in that case, Elaine, at a crisis moment, okay? So we've gone from one crisis to another. Thank you for that question.
Yeah.
I want to go to my second question as time's fast moving.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, what behaviours indicate that the love of money is driving your spending decisions? What behaviours indicates that the love of money is or was driving one's spending decisions?
Well, I'll tell you, actually, this is really important, because I think for a lot of us, actually, this can be a bit challenging. But I think one of the first things are that when you confuse your net worth with your self-worth, and that is when the things that you're buying around you make you feel that actually that you've got some sort of status, because they're just material things. So that car, you know, that watch, those trainers, you know, young people especially are into certain types of trainers, you know, symbols of wealth that actually don't really mean anything.
So are you saying to me, Elaine, are you saying to me my iPhone 12, my iPhone wristwatch, and my iPhone whatever doesn't mean anything?
Yeah, it
anymore?
don't mean nothing, doesn't mean a thing, David.
Oh my days.
Doesn't mean a thing.
I've been stripped of my identity.
Doesn't mean a thing, David, actually. Doesn't mean a thing. But, okay, you know, it's this confusion, as I say, when you know, and people do this, people do confuse, particularly young people who are trying to understand about money, you know, and that, you know, those trainers that cost £500, you can't buy, but somebody else has to buy. Or if you are unlucky enough to have a young person who's veering over to the dark side because they are being influenced by people who say they will buy them these things if they do what they want for them. These are dangerous things, and that's one indicator that the love of money is taking over. But most importantly, I think, when you're making financial decisions that hurt the people that you love, hurt the people that you care about, and that deny others what they are entitled to. So you might be hurting people you love and care about, and hurting people that you don't love and care about as well. But when your financial decisions are denying people that they have a right to, or hurting people, something is seriously wrong. And, you know, we know things, we know about financial crime, scams, fraud, all of those types of things do that kind of thing. But sometimes they don't even have to be as dire as that. You know, we know sometimes when there are bereavements, and a person might die intestate, and there is money that needs to be sorted out. Those things can wreck a family, and you think, well, what's that about? You know, what's that about? Actually, your love as a family, who you are as a family, is actually more important than what that person's left behind. So when I think that's a really important one, when your financial decisions start to hurt people. And of course, we have to remember that when the love of money is taking over, is hijacking our mindset, that leads to emotional and moral bankruptcy. Actually, that's what's going on. That's what's going to happen in the long run. And that is much more devastating than the money bankruptcy or the financial bankruptcy that we talk about. And, you know, it takes you back always to what is really important. That's why the emotional competence framework, that motivation competence, is so important to keep in mind, because it takes you back to what is really important in life. And we need to be clear on our values. And it makes us then go back to our values and be very clear on our values and very clear on our motivations. You know, those things that truly resonate with you, you know.
Thanks, Elaine. See, those of you who were listening every word Elaine was saying, okay, you see there's a passion there, okay? But the main theme I got from what Elaine was saying is confusion between net worth with self-worth, or as someone has put in a group, in a chat box as well too, it's confusion between net worth, self-worth, and street cred. Street cred and net worth isn't important. It's your self-worth. And as Elaine said towards the end, moving on to your moral bankruptcy with the love of money. Thanks, Elaine, for that. That was quite engaging and insightful, those words of wisdom. I want to leave you with, don't confuse your net worth with your self-worth. Okay, it's very important because it can take you over to that dark side where you lose your moral compass. So that's great. Thanks, Elaine.
Thank you, David. Now I've got a couple for you, David.
Really?
Yep, I have. And the first one I've got for you, David, is about saving and investing. And I'm really, I've become a saver really. After all of these things in my life, I've become a saver. I'm quite an avid saver, and now I'm looking to be investing. And I've started a bit of it, but I'm really keen. So, David, but can you tell me what is the difference between saving and investing, and also what things do I need to be aware of and be really know about before I go into investing or even saving? What sorts of things do I need to be clear of and sure about when I'm saving and investing?
Okay, let's start off with the separation between savings and investing, because people often think they're one and the same thing. And the demarcation that I use is that saving is putting money aside from your current income for either a known or an unknown purchase in the future. So it's deferred spending. It's something you want to save in towards, like the iPhone 12,002, whatever, or the iPhone watch I haven't got yet, I'm saving towards. That is saving.
Yeah.
Whereas investment, on the other hand, is whereby you're seeking to purchase an asset with expectation that in the future it will grow and provide an income in the future. So that might be perhaps you're going to buy a property. Yeah. Because people think whenever you spend money, spending, not all money that leaves your hand is spending. Some is expenditure, some is investing. So you might buy that house with expectation in the future that house might rise in value and provide a means for yourself, or you might invest your money in stocks and shares. And I'll give an example of that. Late last year, I had a client, I met him, and he said to me, Dave, I've got £300,000 in shares. And I was intrigued to know why he bought shares. So I said, why did you buy shares? And he said, I love his answer, shares was to provide me the dividends in the future when I'm old. So he was archetypal investment was it's to provide me with growth and dividends for the future, the long term. It's a long-term thing, where savings is just something you're buying.
Yeah.
What determines your saving, though, is whether it provides you with satisfaction or feel-good factor. Yeah. Also, is it essential? Is it something you really need or want? Or is it desire? Or is it one of those must-have, or what I like to call the follow fashion or follow the sheep spending? Okay, because many people buy things to follow others they don't really like or want. And also, how long will it take you to actually save the money to acquire the iPhone watch, or that lovely Lexus turbo convertible car? Yep, you can't drive in London at 20 miles an hour. Okay, so those are the drivers for spending.
Yeah.
Whereas investment has a complete different set of rules. And the first rule about investing is, do not invest money or put money at risk that you might require in a short term or you can't afford to lose, because it goes up and it goes down. Just like in UK umbrellas, it goes up and it goes down, often more up than down, or more down and up. But that's investments.
Right. Okay.
Also, as well too, do you know your risk appetite? Because what you can stomach as an investment, I can't. We all have different attitudes towards risk and risk appetites. And that's why lots of people are on this cryptocurrency craze, this Forex craze, this new fashion and so forth. And I tell people, I've been dealing in foreign exchange since September 1983 as a trainee accountant. It's not a new thing yet. You can understand what you're getting involved with. Do your homework, preparation. So it's about understanding your risk appetite and what you're prepared to lose. Prime example of that, just before or just as we got into the 2008 crash, a client of mine rang me one Friday, Dave, is it true? I said, what? Barclays, their shares halved. I said, yeah. He says, Dave, my £6,000 tax money's in there. I said, well, you can't leave now, can you? You gotta try and ride it out. Okay. So there was a great idea, badly thought out. His tax money he needed in 2 months' time was dumped in the Barclays shares on a high.
Yeah.
The market crashed.
Wow.
And therefore he had to find other means to pay his taxes whilst he waited for Barclays to recover again.
Yeah.
Fortunately now he does invest much differently. But rule is, don't expose yourself to that which you can't afford to lose.
Yeah. And you're told, aren't you, with shares that they can go up or they can go down. They do warn you about share prices and what's going on. So you're right, it is this whole thing, if you can't afford to lose it, don't invest it if you're investing. But I was interested in what you said about long term, because of course some of us who are buying our homes wouldn't necessarily think of our mortgages as an investment. What would you say? Would you say that actually that is an investment because it takes you 25 years on average to buy your house, what you paid for it 25 years before, it's likely to be worth a lot more of that. Is that an investment, or is it just a place to live? Because I'm always going to need something to live. Can I really say that's an investment? Or
first and foremost, a home is a home. It's a place to live. But since post 74, since the property crash 74, we've seen this love affair with property as a asset and so forth. The mortgage is the price we pay in the short term for the hope that asset will grow. And we've seen with property, it goes up and down as well too. But over time, for most people, property has been the asset that has been the springboard for them into other things as well too. If you think, for example, the Windrush generation who bought those houses that nobody wanted in Hackney or Brixton, they were too large for the host community, and they bought these houses for today's price is next to nothing. There's a lady in Brockley who bought a house for £17,000, and she can't believe, she said to me, Dave, this bit of bricks and mortar is now in the region of £600,000.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that?
Yeah.
And that's so no mortgage. There is it's an asset with an income, with resources in there to be used for other things as well too, to also perhaps to pass on to the next generation.
Absolutely. And that's for another event, isn't it? We're going to talk about that another. I've got one more question, and I'm going to ask this question. I know time's running, but I think it's a really important question to ask, and this is the last one really. And this is about partner. Now, we know, don't we, how important partner has been in our communities. I mean, the Windrush generation, my mum will tell you that, without partner, certain things they wouldn't have been able to do because, they were excluded financially. They excluded when they came in. They couldn't get borrowing from the bank and mainstream lenders, and partner saved a lot of people's lives. I'm just assuming that everybody knows what partner is. Community banking, people come together, put money in the pot, and so that people can get either a loan if it's the first hand, or savings if you're at the end of the partner. It's one of the other, isn't it really? But frequently there's a banker, so you might have to pay the banker. Well, my question is, David, that was Windrush was 70 odd years ago. Today, what role does partner have, or what should partner have in our savings plan? Right,
there's two answers to this, and the simple answer is none at all. But I think that's not true. I think that's misunderstanding the role of partner, socio-economic and political role of partner. Yeah, So yes, there's lots of banks around, other things around, but partners still have a place because partners are a social bond and glue that keeps together people who are relocated or displaced. And it has been and was and will still continue to be the actual vehicle that helps some people to actually acquire and build things. It's also, dare I say it, is giving access to finance for many people who still don't have access, who the bank calls lemons. So the partners do have that, so that purpose.
Yeah.
However, on the other hand, using a traditional financial model hand, one might say partner is very risky. It has no laws governing it. Also, and be truthful, partner is loss making. Do you think about it? For 25 weeks or 50 weeks, you're saving £100 a week in a partner. End of the partner period, you have to give to the banker £30 or £40. So you're getting back less than you put in, because you put that same money into, dare I say it, in PCU, Pentecostal Credit Union, every month. End of 50 weeks, you get back the exact amount, plus also some dividends as well too. So in financial terms, it's loss making. But in terms of community, whether you get the first hand or the second hand, it's giving you access to a pot of money to do things. And many people, many of us, have been able to develop and get to where we are through the likes of the partner. So whilst it might not be wholly a great financial vehicle, and one might say it serves no purpose, I still think for some people it is a good vehicle that holds people together, because also it brings you together as well too. Each week or each month, people meet and they might be over social, and they discuss things, and they share ideas as well too. But also, let's not forget, and let's be real, there's a risk that sometimes the banker does run off with your money. Sometimes he or she who's had their draw or had their hand doesn't come back. So there are swings and roundabouts, but my take on it, partners still serves a purpose for some parts of the community, especially those who are being neglected or displaced by the banking institutions. Yeah. However, though, for those people, I would say, if you want an alternative, do think about looking to your credit union, and there's no better place to start than PCU.
Absolutely. We've got a couple of comments in the chat that I'm just going to tell you about. Somebody's asked, and I can answer this one actually. Somebody asked, what is partner? And I explained, and in Nigeria, it's called Osusu. And in Ghana, it's called Susu. Absolutely, that is exactly what it is. It's the same concept, you know. It actually came through slavery, they say. It actually traveled over to the Caribbean, where in Jamaica it's called partner. In other islands it's called, in Guyana, I think it's called box hand. In Trinidad, it's called Susu. But actually, it is an age-old, ancient form of community banking. So that's exactly what it is. We understand. Somebody else here has said partners are generally accessible. What would you say to that? Partners are generally accessible. Are they, David?
Yeah, you're often invited by a colleague or a friend into a partner to participate in a partner. Again, it's about that social bringing together. Whereas going to a bank, open a bank account, you have to fill in details, date of birth, and you're vetted by this faceless computer who knows or doesn't like you. But whereas in a partner, oh, he's my friend, I've known him well, went to school together and so forth, we travel together on the same ship or the same plane, yes, they can come in. And it's again, because a partner is more than just savings, it's also about bringing people together and building community spirit.
Yes, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. And it's someone's, Zina has said, as long as you're in a group where there is equal trust. And yeah, partners are generally, and as long as you're in a group where there is equal trust, that's very true. But you know what the amazing thing about partner is? actually they generally work very well. Very few people do run off with your money. A part of it is a risk, but actually it is based on trust, and they pretty well do that. Now, there are a couple of other questions which actually we're not going to cover today because they are for another other event. Someone's asked about investments and how to save when you're on a low income. Actually, we've got 3 other events and we're going to be covering those then. So I think what we need to do now is, if there's nobody's got any other questions, is just to wrap up our let's talk about it, and just wrap up this session. And this is an ideal, the discussion on partner actually is an ideal segue into just talking about the Pentecostal Credit Union, and so that people actually know about us. Those of you who are not our members, I know we've got lots of members here tonight, but those of those of you who are not members will know that partner and credit unions are both elements of community banking, only in that they rely on the community to provide the funding for lending through savings. That's what's the same about them. But actually, credit unions are very different than partner in that we are regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority and the Prudential Regulation Authority, and £85,000 of your savings are protected by the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. So your money is safe. We are regulated in the same way that banks are. But what's really interesting about community banking, credit unions, and Windrush generation is actually, many people don't know that Windrush generation brought community banking to this country. They will never tell you this, but the first credit union in this country in 1964 was called the Hornsey Credit Union, and it was established by a group of people from the Caribbean. They were Windrush, they came over, they were Windrush generation, and they established the first ever credit union in this country. So we not only brought community banking in the form of Susu or partner to this country, we also brought credit unions to this country. This credit union, PCU, was established in 1980. We're over 40 years old as a result of the discrimination against our communities that were being developed, that was handed out by mainstream financial providers. So at 41 years old, we're actually one of the oldest credit unions in the country, and incidentally, financially, one of the strongest. So if you want to know more about us, go to our website, www.pcuuk.com. If you want to contact us, you can contact us on info@pcuuk.com. I would just like to invite you to the next event. Our next event is next Thursday, same time, same channel, as they say. And next Thursday, we're going to be talking about debt and your credit status, which will include a credit report and things like that, and why that's important. And that's another important aspect of financial resilience. Thank you so much for coming and joining us this evening. I hope that you have really enjoyed this. Please give us your comments so that we can improve on it for next time. And yeah, see you next week. Bye-bye.
Cheers, everybody. Good night. Have a good one. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.